My name is Alex, and this is the story of how I went from following the traditional path, attending Cornell University and dreaming of financial freedom, to turning that dream into a reality by becoming a millionaire trading crypto meme coins. Growing up, my family wasn't the richest out of the bunch. After learning how to trade, I'm able to live life the way I want and give back to my loved ones. And even though that sounds great, I didn't get here without struggle. In fact, I got here by failing pretty hard. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through exactly what I went through. Every setback, every mistake, every lesson. And if you're stuck right now, maybe you hate your job, you're struggling financially, or just feel completely lost, I'm going to share the exact steps I took to rebuild after losing everything so you can do the same. This is my story. Starting off, I grew up in Jersey in a pretty typical Asian household. I was told to study, get good grades, and eventually become an investment banker. So pretty typical Asian parents. And we weren't rich, but we lived pretty comfortably. I was able to go out to eat sometimes. I was able to receive tutoring for my studies. And with that foundation, it felt like my path was already decided for me. Just like my parents always said, I was supposed to become an investment banker. But there was one thing that I grew up with consistently that would eventually lead me to snapping. And it's that every day, my dad would repeat the same thing to me: study hard, work in finance, and retire at 40. Now, I might sound a little spoiled saying this, but unfortunately, I almost accepted this as my reality because I didn't know how to confront my parents about taking a different path. I didn't even know there was a different path to begin with, but grinding my entire life away, my youth, just to maybe enjoy it at 40, I thought there had to be a better way. And it's funny because as a kid, I really wanted to become a video game developer. I loved playing games during my free time, and I loved the idea of that sense of freedom in being able to build whatever I wanted, until I found out that most video game devs don't make shit. And that's when I really became obsessed with money early on. I started to find money in every little thing I could offer. I would do homework for other people for payment. I was flipping in-game items on this game called Roblox for cash. And I was just trying to find any single loophole to make a little bit more money. But these systems always had a ceiling, and I quickly realized I needed better ways to make money. And then 2023 hit. I followed exactly what my parents told me to do, and I got accepted into Cornell University. I had a 1520 SAT, a 98 GPA, an entire list of extracurriculars just for college that I didn't even want to do, and I did everything right in my parents' eyes. I was finally a part of the Ivy League, and from the perspective of them and a lot of other people, I had the golden ticket. And at first, yeah, I was excited about it. This was the reward for putting my entire life into my studies. But just after a couple days, I realized that deep down, something was off. The same way I felt about my dad telling me about investment banking, I was just unsure. I really felt like I was meant for something bigger. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew something was there. And I was wondering, is it even worth going down this path if I'm not even motivated towards what I'm working for and I'm not even going to enjoy the reward I'm going to get from that? Why was I going down this path? And this all just felt like a fancier version of that same trap. And once I realized that, that's when everything started to change. Now meet Shams. He was one of my closest friends at the time. We would always be doing stuff together, and one day we were on a call and he brought up how he got into meme coins. He was literally telling me every single step of the journey, the YouTube videos he was watching, the coins he was in, the coins he was crying to me about because he was losing money in. He was just telling me every little detail of what was going on. And to add to that, he was also breaking down the potential of what we could be making, of what some of his friends were making. And something just clicked. I knew this was what I wanted to do. It was a raw, volatile space where someone could make their entire yearly salary in a single day and lose it the next. And I was just addicted. This was a place where you had the pure freedom to navigate a constantly changing market and really make your own mark. Every result you got out of here was just dependent on you. And to me, it felt like that dream I had of becoming a video game dev coming back to life, except holy shit, I could actually make money out of this. But I had one problem. I was a broke teenager and I didn't really feel like I had the money to compete with other traders. So what I would do instead was just completely obsess over it. I would paper trade in my head. I'd spend every single waking moment thinking about trades. In class, at lunch, when I was doing my homework, when I was going out, literally in the middle of my lectures, everybody behind me could see my screen and I was just sitting there scanning the market, looking at meme coins. I remember there was this one day I called Shams and I was like, oh my god, dude, I made $2,000 on this trade. And I was just hyping myself up. He was hyping me just for me to drop in the end and say $2,000 in my head. I would have made $2,000 if I had the money to. I was literally taking trades in my mind, and that's how bad I wanted it. But eventually, I decided to take the leap. I used the $500 graduation gift from my grandparents, and I bought Solana to trade on chain. I thought this was going to be my big breakthrough where I would be able to drop out and live my dream and do whatever I want. And just 2 days later, I lost it all. I remember I was in this Telegram group and they called out this coin Fine. It was a dog sipping his coffee in a burning house. Thought it was a pretty popular meme. Didn't really do my research, didn't look into it any further than that. And I just watched all of my $500 turn into 5. I couldn't even afford the transaction fees. But like I said, I was obsessed. I decided to try again. I put in $300 of my Christmas money. And this time I turned it into 0 in 3 days. I was doing fine at first. I was in slight profit and then I got impatient. Did the same thing. I thought, okay, this was going to be the exception. It happened to me last time. It can't happen to me again. Nope, all gone. I scooped up the very last $500 I had. Every single cent I saved up from holidays, gifts growing up, my birthday present. The last $500 I put into Solana and I managed to survive. And from that point on, it was full on obsession. In the classes I had my friends in, I would just sit down on my laptop, look at the market. When I was eating lunch with my friends, sit down with my laptop, look at the market. Anytime I had on the bus, I would look at the market. And I would do all of that during my classes just to go back to my room, log myself in, look at the market. I put everything aside, all just to stare at the market. And you would think the way that I was acting, I was handling millions of dollars. No, this was just the $500 that I started with and somehow managed to survive and just slowly climbing up inch by inch. I'd wake up and the only thing on my mind would be the market. Some of my friends would call me a gambler, question what the hell I was doing, but this didn't matter to me because I was already in a strict routine. I would wake up, check the market, check the news, pack my bag, eat breakfast while looking at the market, wait for my class, checking the market, get on the bus, checking the market, sit during my classes, checking at the market, get back to my room, checking the market. This was all I wanted, and I was dedicating my entire life towards making it happen. And then came summer 2024. I had finally scaled my $500 into $5,000. I felt like I was on top of the world. I was staying consistent with my schedule, and I was just waiting for that breakthrough to happen. But just as fast as I made it, I lost it all with just a few careless trades. I got greedy. All those months of grinding up just to be put back in my starting position. A little embarrassing, but even after losing everything multiple times, I never quit. And after every big loss, I was never actually put back in my starting position because I had that previous knowledge. My motivation never died. I was motivated 24/7. I had to make this happen. What other path did I have? Going back to school and working towards something I didn't even want to work towards and live a life that I didn't want to live. So during the summer, at my parents' house, I locked myself in the basement. Just me, my MacBook, and 18-hour days just trading on VC with Shams and whatever other communities I was in. And then it hit. I turned that $500 I had into $104,000 in under 2 weeks. I remember this exact moment. The trade that took me to over 6 figures. I made $20,000 on a meme coin called Clio. It was at 0 and I knew attention would rotate back because we were in an exchange pet meta. My wallet was literally the top trader on this coin. I was dancing around like an idiot in my room for 5 minutes straight. I was 18 years old with 6 figures to my name. And in the morning, I told my now very concerned parents who still had no idea what I was doing in the basement for 18 hours a day. And there's no drug in the world that could replicate that euphoria I was feeling in those moments. But unfortunately, it did not last long. Because not even 2 months later, I turned that $104,000 into $18,000. And for the first time on this entire journey, after all those previous wipeouts I had, all those round trips, this was the very first time I was just emotionally devastated. This loss finally got to me. I thought I had infinite money when I hit 6 figs. I was throwing it away carelessly. It's like my brain just completely shut off and went all the way back to square one the second I hit that 6-figure mark. And I started to really think about what I was doing with my life. My mind was just clouded with doubt and I was questioning myself. Was this all I could show for all those months of working, scanning, and trading for over half of my 24-hour day? I was just at a very low point in life. I was complaining to Shams, saying the market was all luck, and I genuinely thought the entire market was out to get me. I didn't tell my parents about that round trip and I would just sit in the basement, not trading this time, just rotting. And at this point, I was just about to give up until I decided to try one last time. I had to collect myself and really think about why I was even doing this in the first place. I couldn't live the life that my parents showed me. I absolutely refused to. And I knew the second that I would even consider it was the moment that my journey here in crypto would end. I had no other option. I realized how close I was to breaking free. I turned that $500 scrap I had into six figures at the age of 18. I did it before and I knew I could do it again. And like I said before, my portfolio might have round tripped several times, but not my skill set. From there, I had a completely new drive. I opened a fresh wallet, moved some of my money into there, and I went all in. Tightened up my risk management. I pretty much assumed every single dollar I put into a coin was zero the second I put that money into the trade. And this was where I really learned the value of money. Up until this point, I had honestly treated it like a game, just trying to get as much of a high score as possible. But after that loss, I realized that this was reality. This was my life. And I just round tripped an amount of money that could change someone's life. I can't be throwing it everywhere carelessly. And in addition to my risk management, I got way more selective with my trades. Every single trade I took, I had a plan. I physically wrote my entire thesis on paper of every significant trade I took, which I looked over several times myself. I brought to Shams for him to look over. I shared my insights with other friends I made in my crypto communities for them to look over. I was researching literally everything and I had a real process dialed down to the T. And by the end of summer, I had climbed my way back up to over 300,000. And then came school. If I thought it was bad when I had that initial spark, after what happened that summer and with actual money on my hands, it went from me checking the market in class to not even showing up at all. It became a regular habit for me to not show up to my lectures, and the ones without mandatory acceptance, forget about them. I didn't attend a single lecture in my psychology of work class. I avoided events. I skipped dates. Sometimes I'd forget I was even attending Cornell. And now meet James. My friend Shams found out that someone in the same trading community as him also went to Cornell University. He connected us, we got dinner, and we talked about how we ended up here. And as we were talking with each other, we realized we had the same exact outlook. Neither of us had honestly paid attention to our classes. And on that first day I met him, we decided to trade together. I hit a $20,000 trade right in front of his face. And from that point on, all we did was trade together. It was the exact same thing, missing homework, not showing up to classes, not showing up to events. But this time it was both of us. And after consistently trading, skipping my classes, putting my full attention into crypto, I had $1 million in liquid crypto. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't feel the same way about hitting $1 million as I did to my first 100,000. Maybe it was the fact that my first 100,000 was the breakthrough point where I realized I could actually do this, or just the fact that getting here honestly felt like more of a job. But at the bottom of it, in my eyes, I had made it. 7 figures, $1 million in liquid crypto. I couldn't ever dream of touching this amount at my age. But what now? At this point, our entire lives had just revolved around crypto. Cornell, the school I had worked so hard to get into, was in reality giving me zero value for what I actually wanted to do. And the only thing I had to show for that was countless absences and a 2.3 near failing GPA. And so I made the decision with James to leave Cornell. We both realized that school couldn't give us anything more than what crypto had already given us. And from that point on, I never looked back at the traditional path because trading crypto changed everything for me. Now fast forward 2025. We bought flights to leave with Shams, who was also feeling that same exact way, and decided to look for quote unquote a base of operations. We decided to look for a house in LA first, but unfortunately the fires got in the way of that. So we settled on moving out to Miami. And now I trade full time and my life has completely changed. Now, more than being financially free, more than the amount of money I made, I'm able to live life on my own terms. Everything I worked for, those near 2 years of just staring at my laptop for sometimes 18 hours a day, is why I'm able to live in what I originally thought was a dream. I'm able to work on my own accord, build things that I actually want to, work with my closest friends, and give back to my loved ones. And for that reason, I'm extremely grateful, and crypto has truly and genuinely changed my life. Now, I've learned a lot throughout my crypto trading journey, but what can you actually take out of it? The first lesson is that you will round trip. The mistakes I made in my journey are honestly not unique. Every profitable trader I know has round tripped 80% of their portfolio at one point. You need to think of your portfolio as a coin. No chart's gonna be only up. They need healthy retraces. And the further it goes without one, the more unhealthy and the worse the crash will be. And that's because keeping your money is harder than making it. In a volatile market like crypto, making $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 trades is honestly sometimes seen as regular because it really does happen. It's honestly almost like a glitch. Crypto gives the average person a chance to break into the bracket of wealth. But remember, for a person to make 100,000 in this market, others need to lose that same amount of money. You need to be protective of your capital. You will lose that money, but how you handle these losses is what will determine your future. If you did it before, you can do it again. Every single time my portfolio tanked, whether it completely wiped out or lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, you need to keep in your mind that while that number itself has gone down, the knowledge that you used to get it up in the first place is still there. You can always do it again. But how you protect that capital is by making sure you have proper risk management. Lack of this is what causes these round trips. So you need to keep some points in mind. Consider every cent of money you put into a coin as zero. Remember, crypto is a volatile market. You're not in the S&P 500 here. You need to consider whatever money you put in has already lost. And I know sometimes that's physically impossible, but the closer you can get to that mentality is when you'll start thinking much more objectively, and it's going to change the way you look at coins. And you'll pick up on things you may have not before. Another way you can practice proper risk management is having multiple wallets. If you can't control yourself mentally, you better be able to control yourself physically. Keeping all your money in one place is how you lose that control. And it's one of the reasons I round tripped at 104,000 back into 18. I was trenching with 6 figures in my wallet. You do not need that much money when you're trading new pairs. Having all that money in one wallet is why I thought I had infinite money, and it's what caused me to get really careless with my trades. If you genuinely have no care at all about your position, you have too little money in. But if you're being way too emotional about chop, you have too much money in. You need to find that right balance. You still need to be on your feet and researching 24/7. And the final point is always be prepared for the worst. That doesn't mean you should expect it, but always hedge yourself against the worst. For me, on that round trip from 6 figures, another big reason as to why I lost that money was because there was war FUD going on. War news always tanks the market, and I was overexposed. I had way too much of my portfolio in volatile coins. And the second macro fell down, those weak coins plummeted. Now they had solid narratives. I'm not saying to completely avoid volatile coins. Like I said, don't expect the worst, but always be prepared for it to happen. And beyond risk management, you also need to remember to have a system in place. Always go into your trades with a plan and a thesis. When I now buy a coin, I already know the target audience this narrative is geared towards. My short and long-term thesis. What are the events that are actually going to make this coin go up in both the short and long term? The coin's bull catalyst. What is actually driving this narrative in the first place? And what are the realistic ways this coin can gain attention? What invalidates the trade? How do I know when my thesis will be wrong and whether I should cut or not? And how I'll plan to scale out. If you do not have an actual plan when you're going into your trades, don't be like me at the start and just taking all these things at face value. Remember, you're not the exception to getting rugged. If it happened before, it will happen again. You are not special. And to help you get that system, I also learned your network is your net worth. I did not take this journey alone. I literally dedicated slides to my friends James and Shams because they were a crucial part of my journey in crypto. We traded together, we shared information together, we shared insights together. Multiple brains analyzing the market and multiple eyes scanning it is always going to be better than one, which means you need to trade with other people. I don't care if it's with your friends or in a community. This is not a solo game. A large majority of the best traders in the space trade together. If they're doing it, why the hell aren't you? And even beyond that, you will make lifelong friends and connections from crypto. Shams and James are the 2 closest friends I have. And something about going on the same journey, taking the same risks, taking the same wins, it creates a real connection. And of course, with other people, you can also learn from their experiences and insights. But past all of that, the #1 key to success in crypto is that obsession guarantees success. Showing up is the most important part. What I love about crypto so much is that you actually get what you put in. I have friends who would be considered traditionally stupid who are multi-millionaires. Why? Because they showed up. It's the most important part. If you show up every single day, if you put in the hours, you are guaranteed to spot a runner. It's up to you to actually have the intuition to take action on that. I showed up every single day, and some of these I put 18 freaking hours in, even when I had less than $5,000 to my name. And if you don't have that obsession mindset, you need to force yourself into it. Always stay updated with the news. And whenever you have time for yourself, you can be in a focused environment. You should be scanning the market because as long as you stay determined, success is not a matter of if, but when. Treat this bull run like the generational wealth opportunity it really is. People who are 10, 100 times richer than you are putting their full energy into this. Why do you think you're gonna come out on top if you're just half-assing it? I stuck to these lessons all throughout college, and it's what got me to where I am today. Looking back, if I had learned this earlier, I would have hit this level much faster. Because I never gave up on myself, I now earn over 6 figures a month, and I help others with their own crypto journey in my one-on-one Fortune Inner Circle. If you want to trade with me and Shams and James, who I mentioned in the video, personally, and have a chance at getting results like Enabler, who made $20,000 on one of his first trades here, and Bayside, who scaled a few $100s into a $300,000 portfolio, all at the age of 15, head to the first link in the description down below to apply. If my story inspired you and you're ready to receive guidance and want to start moving life in the direction you want it to go ahead and check it out. If there's one thing you want to take away from my story, it's this: I'm not anyone special. I just wanted it bad enough, I refused to quit, and I showed up. I hope this inspired some of you out there to get started. Thanks for watching.